So very good to see everybody. Welcome to week 4 of Mindful Wellbeing for Uncertain Times. And today we're going to talk about something called VUCA or VUCA. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's an acronym. I'll tell you more about that. And once we get into it. And, remember we talked about thoughts and stress last week. So now we kind of bring in more of the emotional component and also something called equanimity. And I'll define that. And we'll talk more about how to get equanimity even in the midst of sort of a roller coaster of emotions. But so before I ask you how your week went, let's do a quick pause just to help bring us to here and now. And we're going to do something called 3 breaths for a pause. So just sit comfortably, find a position that's good for you to be quiet and still. And you can close your eyes if you like, but you don't have to, because this is another one of those quick pause exercises that you can do on the go. But if you want to right now, close the eyes, that's fine. And take a nice full deep breath and just really feel the breath entering the body and leaving the body. And just really pay attention to this one breath. Just using the breath as an anchor to the present moment. And then take another nice full deep breath. And this time, pay attention to your body. So just notice your body, where it's positioned and sitting, and the chair beneath it, and the feet on the floor. And ask yourself, what does my body need right now? Maybe it needs to stretch, or to move, or to have some water, or to release some water, or what does your body need right now? Just checking in. And then the third deep breath in, and really just remember to be kind to yourself. Remember that compassion really starts with the self, and that it helps to appreciate the good work you do and the caring that you give, and that it's important to fill your well so you have something in the well to give to others. So just make sure you take care of yourself. That's the third breath. And that's it. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. And that's 3 breaths for a pause. And that can be your informal practice this week. We've got a couple of things for you to do. So again, welcome, and how's it going? Give me a little bit of input on how your practice has been this past week. I asked you to do either the thought meditation or the rain, or I attached the breaking the worry addiction. So did anybody get a chance to try some of those? And if so, what was your experience with it? And again, you can use the chat feature or feel free to speak up.
Hi, Bud. It's Candy.
Hi, Candy.
Hi. So I've been practicing the rain this week. And so I'm recognizing what is happening, and I'm trying to allow it to just be as it is. And I do like little affirmations to myself when I'm trying to be okay with what's going on at the moment. And investigating my inner experience with kindness, I find myself investigating my inner experience as to what's going on, but I keep forgetting to do the kindness part to myself. But since I just actually pulled out the paper, that's when I realized I'm not doing the kindness, towards myself. I'm investigating what's going on and what's making me feel like this, but I'm not being kind to myself. But while I'm not being so kind, I am trying to not be judgmental of myself.
Well, that's the key. And that's why, they brought in that element of kindness and friendliness to yourself, because when we begin to investigate what's going on in a particular situation, sometimes we can, the inner critic arises. And sometimes that, we don't want it to be saying to ourselves, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or, what's wrong with me? Or and we're going to really talk more about this in one of the classes on self-compassion, that we can really beat ourselves up. So, but the other thing that you investigate when you do this is investigate your internal experience with thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. So just kind of really noticing and seeing what arises. And remember, one of the key parts of the lesson from last week is learning to step back from our thoughts and our feelings so that we don't get caught up in the story and the drama of it. And that's happens, and that's what we recommend with rain as well. So when you investigate it, you can think about, hopefully you can get a little more insight into it. But the insight also comes into, okay, geez, when my boss says that something to me, that triggers something that I feel like a little kid again or something from
Right.
whatever,
Okay.
and so then you can realize, oh, it's that one of those old automatic patterns is arising. And so the trick is to then not say, well, okay, you shouldn't feel that way. Whenever when you hear yourself shoulding, don't should on yourself, or, must or ought to, or anything like that. When you hear yourself talk like that, then that's, just try to let go of that. And it sounds like you're trying not to be judgmental. So that's good. And that's
Right.
that's a
Right.
key
Okay.
attitude for all of this. How about others? Any other experiences? The thought meditation, I think, is important. And if you didn't try that much or at all, hopefully you did, but I would encourage you to keep trying the thought meditation, because it really brings up this idea that we are not our thoughts, which is pretty strange when you think about it. Our thoughts are in our brains, and we kind of assume that our thoughts and ourselves are, inextricably linked. But they're not really. There are lots of thoughts that we have. Remember, we have many, many thoughts every day. They say something like 50,000 thoughts a day. And many of them are repetitive, and many of them are even subconscious. We're not that aware of them. And so the idea that thoughts are not facts, that's kind of an important thing here. And the idea that we can step back from them and sort of observe our thoughts from a neutral bystander, in a sense. Okay. So that's one of the things there that's kind of important. Any other feedback or comments or questions about any of the meditations? Any of those? How about your frequency? Are you finding time to fit this in on a daily or almost daily basis?
It's Melanie. I logged on late. I'm sorry. I was on another Zoom.
No problem. Hi, Melanie.
Yeah, I find I can do it through the day. I work remote, and given the line of my work, I have the ability to, even deep breathe and meditate through. So I actually have made a habit of doing that before I jump into another Zoom, because I find the overstimuli of Skype calls, Zoom calls, just back to back all day long I think it's a stimuli that by the time it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I feel like I just worked in the trenches. So I think because it's not the content of the meeting per se, I think it's just computer time and just overstimuli. I'm just back to back.
Yeah.
So I've had to do something because I find it gives me an underlying agitation, which I am not a person that's like that. So, and I was an old ER nurse, so trust me, we dealt with tons in the emergency room. So I think it's just stimuli at this point that I'm trying to actually figure that out.
Okay.
Or it's working remote and feeling isolated. So maybe there is some component of that. I don't know, but I'm trying to figure that out because I can feel sometimes just simmering agitation, which is not me at all.
Okay. Well, what's the effect when you're able to fit in some deep breathing and meditation during the day? What do you notice? Do you notice that?
It does. It works. It brings it right down. And then every day at lunch, I'll go out because I live on the water and get on the boardwalk and make a habit. I wasn't doing that. And I do, no matter what the day looks like. Good. And do that. And it absolutely grounds me. So the deep breathing even grounds it just it calms that right down. So good. I find it helpful for me individually that it has worked, and it's an easy fix. So I'm happy to do it. So
good. So yeah, that's good. You're getting outside too. That's a good way to integrate some mindful awareness into, walking or, paying attention to nature. But you'll notice even when we do that, at least I do, I notice it, I still get distracted and my mind goes off on its own. And that's the idea. That's why the thought meditation is helpful, because we become more aware of those thought patterns. And even if you find yourself completely lost in thought, once you go, oh, there, I was thinking about something, that's the autopilot, right? And you all of a sudden realize that you're lost in thought and you're not being present. You're not here and now. You're thinking about something that happened or something that hasn't even happened yet. So that's the pulling yourself back into the present moment. And that's what that interrupts that cycle of being on autopilot. But it also, makes us realize that the repetitive thought patterns that we have, and that you can begin to choose which thoughts are nurturing and helpful and skillful and which are not. And you can choose to pay attention more to the ones that are helpful. So try that. Now the informal exercise was also doing the 3-minute breathing space, the stop, and the noticing unpleasant events. So how about those? Did anybody try some of that, and what was that like? Everybody's quiet today, well, except for a couple. If you want to just put something in the chat, just that's helpful too. Just give me some little bit of the unpleasant events. You might wonder, well, why is he asking me to focus on unpleasant events? Well, it's really just simply because we want to, sort of like mini rain sessions. When there's an unpleasant event, we want to recognize, so we want to be aware of it. We want to allow it to be rather than immediately push it away. And maybe we want to investigate it a little bit, how come I'm always reacting to standing in line or, traffic or, and geez, maybe I could react differently. And I often have opinions, and sometimes strong opinions, about whether I like this or don't like that particular thing that's going on. And again, it's just the ability to notice that and be able to not be triggered by it and to be able to step back from that. And that's the, respond wisely instead of react. Now, this week we get into something called VUCA, which again, I'll explain in a minute, and that our emotions, so VUCA and our emotions create strong waves, the waves of all sorts of things in our daily life. But so the idea that we're learning to surf rather than getting tossed around by the waves, that's the skill here. We're learning to be able to apply these techniques so that we're not, you know, getting caught up in the waves. Now, this quote here, our strongest and most habitual emotions are sometimes completely unconscious. Without mindfulness, these patterns can run our lives. So that's really key. This is, you know, kind of in line with what I was talking about with the thoughts, and simply that we want to be aware of emotions also, and emotions are often subconscious, and we're just not really aware. So we want to begin to increase our awareness. It's more difficult in these times because these times we see this idea of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That's VUCA, okay? And VUCA, what that does is it really destroys our attention. And our attention is, you know, when you think of it, is our attention is really a super important skill. And that's really what we're doing here, is we're training our attention so that we can pay better attention to what we need to be paying to, pay better attention to the present moment. But VUCA gets in the way, and VUCA really kind of makes it very difficult. So attention, if you think of this, attention creates your reality. Okay, so the more your attention is on, you know, and if you think about in the COVID era, the more your attention is on the health aspects and the dangerous aspects of it and the scary, fearful aspects of it, though, if you keep getting triggered by that and you keep watching the news and you keep allowing your emotions to override you, that becomes your reality, right? So we can have an effect on that with these mindful practices. So your attention system is like a flashlight. It allows us to select and direct our brain's computational resources to a smaller subset of information. And that's what our attention does. It allows us, because we have so much stimuli, you talked about that, stimuli coming into ourselves. Attention helps us really focus and take a flashlight and kind of really make it a spotlight instead of an overall floodlight, so that we can narrow our sights and be able to focus better. And but attention is vulnerable to stress, threat, and poor mood. So those are all exacerbated by this VUCA, okay? But really the key is, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with you if you're feeling this. Basically, I'm saying the opposite. You know, if you read this next line here, if you've been feeling overwhelmed or unfocused, if you've struggled with staying on task or been blindsided by emotion during this time, me too, we all have. But this is precisely what our prior research, this is from an article, this is precisely what our prior research regarding the human brain's attention system would predict. That in these times, it is even harder because of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity to be able to increase our attention. And that's why it's so important to practice. That's why the more we practice coming back from that autopilot, the more we practice it during meditation, but also in everyday circumstances, we really train and strengthen our ability to come back from distraction and VUCA kinds of things. Make sense? Hopefully it does. So here's an important thing. Your attention is limited, and so is your working memory. Working memory is essentially a partner to attention. It's what allows you to do something with the information you focus on. It's what you use when you need to hold something in mind for a few seconds. For example, remembering the 6-digit confirmation code, or composing a phrase in your mind as you tap out a text, visualizing the route to a new location as you drive. Think of it as a mental whiteboard, a temporary scratch space where you can jot down crucial information. But just like a real life whiteboard, it's only so big. You can only fit 3 or 4 items on it before you max out the space. And it has one important quirk. It uses disappearing ink. So anything you write on your mental whiteboard will start disappearing within a few seconds. If you want to keep it there longer, you have to keep focusing on it. And in this COVID era, we're all running up against the limits of our whiteboards all the time. So, all the more reason to try to train our attention better, to try to just come back from that distraction as much as possible. So I guess I should have gone to this slide before, because that's basically a lot of what I just talked about. But here's a couple of other things related to mindfulness and what we're going to talk about today, number 4 and 5. All these things make us wander more often. And remember, when our minds wander, we tend to wander to negative outcomes or to negative projections. And it's also linked to our emotions. And if our emotions are kind of upset or have to do with being fearful or anxious, then those are the predominant emotions. But we also need to be it's important to be connected to other people. So our attention and our intention are ways that we can use that attention also to be better connected. And then jumping just down to number 10, it is trainable, as I've been saying, so we can really make our ability to surf through the VUCA waves a lot better by training our minds and when we wander to come back. So every time you notice your mind wandering or going down that rabbit hole of just getting caught up in your thoughts and autopilot, just simply come back. All right, just keep doing that. That's really the practice. So I just want to ask you, how are you feeling? Because we're going to talk about emotions today. So if you just look at this, in terms of, we have this pandemic that we've all been dealing with that has really given us a roller coaster of emotions, all kinds of things. Basically, I went too far, but from the pandemic, we also have these kinds of emotions that have to do with this kind of surreal way of being in the world. Okay. And notice they're not all negative. The bottom has some positive: solidarity, courage, and hope. But, there's not one of us that hasn't dealt with some fear or foreboding, worry about what's going to happen, or exhaustion from kind of trying to deal with all this stuff. And of course, grief. We've all lost something, and hopefully, if you've lost a family member or someone close to you to COVID, I'm very sorry, and that's the saddest loss, of course. And I suspect some of us have been touched by this. But there's lots of other losses that this has brought up too. We've lost all kinds of things that we haven't been able to do in the past year. We haven't been able to connect with people as easy. We haven't been able to do any of those things that we normally would have done with birthdays and celebrations and graduations and weddings and all those kinds of things. All the things where we haven't been able to have fun, going out. So those are all losses. And it's been very frustrating. So you can see a lot of these things have been adding to our emotional ups and downs, right? So what's been kind of your predominant mood in the past couple of days, say, maybe? Just look at it that way. That might be very different than what it was like before. Somebody was going to say something?
Yeah, this is Lynette. Tired and like anxious of like what's going to happen next. I'm waiting for the next hour or the next day. So when I wake up tomorrow, what's that going to bring me? So I'm like, okay, what's else? So I don't want to watch the news because I don't know what's next.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. That totally feeds that foreboding and the fear, because we're not even sure if, hopefully we're going to be able to do some more traveling and some things as the summer comes in, but we don't really know for sure, right?
Correct.
There's no guarantee. Nobody's able to really say. And then if, maybe some of your network are vaccinated, but some aren't, then you have that uh, frustration to feel out. But I think what you said, being tired, really covers it, because we're working hard, but we're also, our emotions and our minds are working hard too, and they're triggered. And that's the VUCA again, and that's the emotional ups and downs. How about others? What are some of the predominant feelings lately with others? And again, you can talk out or use the chat feature.
Hey, Bud, this is Sarah. Appreciate you sharing this slide because it definitely has summed up the entire past year. I'm usually not one who's very good with expressing emotions, and you put this on a screen and I go, yep, that would be everything. But I would say my current one at the moment would be exhaustion's been going on the whole year, but right now it's a mixture between foreboding and yet hopeful. So I'm one that planned 3 weddings last year, with hopefully the one a year vow renewal that will actually happen in September this year. But we didn't get to go home at Christmas because my husband's from Ohio. And so we're hopeful that at the end of April, we will actually get to go out and see his family. But I also am foreboding because I know we've planned this trip 2 or 3 times at this point, and I've seen the numbers starting to tick up again. So it's that mixture between hopeful and foreboding, while I'm yet envious of a lot of my Facebook friends who are traveling elsewhere and ignoring rules and things like that. And I'm like, this is really not fair because I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and yet I can't go to places that I want to go to or need to go to.
Yeah, you bring up such great points, and I like it helps to be hopeful, but it's also, then we worry about being let down, and not those things not coming to fruition. My wife and I were talking about traveling next year, and it's like, well, we hope we can go. We have a big trip planned. We really hope we can go, but she'd rather say, well, it doesn't look we just don't know. It doesn't look very good. So I'd rather not get my hopes up and then have them dashed. So I don't know. And it's, I think the important thing here, and we're going to do a whole meditation on this, and hopefully that'll help. But thank you. You bring up so many good points. And the other one I think that's so important is that we see all different people reacting in different ways. And, we're following all the rules, or we're doing what we think is right. And then, maybe they're going to spoil it all. Who knows? Maybe the rates will tick up. And what's it like in Ohio or other states that we're hoping to go to? How are people, we hear about how bad it is in Florida, for example, yet at the same time, then somebody tells me they went to Florida and people are pretty good with mask wearing, at least where they were. So, it's like, it's such an up and down kind of thing. Anybody else?
No, it's Melanie again. I agree with Sarah 100% because I'm Canadian. I've been waiting for well over a year now, coming up to get through the border, and it's still closed. So am I hopeful it'll open for August? I am hopeful, but I'm not counting on anything. So, there's probably frustration in that, but it would be nice if I could get home to family, but
Yeah, absolutely.
It sort of is at this point. It's, if anything, at this point, I've sort of become apathetic because I'm not putting any emotion on it one way or another, that if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I won't be bitterly disappointed or anything because it is what it is. So,
we get kind of cautious.
Yeah.
Well, that, again, good observations. And I don't have the silver bullet answer, but I do have this, that we have to acknowledge our feelings. And that's where the rain comes in. And we're going to do a meditation, as I said, on dealing with difficult emotions. but to realize that, these emotions that we're all having, and that's, I think, one of the, in a sense, a silver lining that's come out of this. We realize that we're all feeling these ways for the most part, and it's almost a universal kind of thing. And it makes it a little bit easier to realize that we're all in this together. There's this common humanity. It's not just us. So, this is, again, the RAIN practice is really helpful here, or the stop, or the 3-minute breathing space. Basically, what we're doing is we're recognizing, we're acknowledging them, we're not pushing it away automatically. We're just seeing if we can stay with it a bit. And you'll see, we'll send ourselves a little compassion as well. It also helps to just label it. So, one of the emotional intelligent ways of doing this is recognizing, understanding, and then labeling the emotion. So even if you say to yourself, oh yeah, there's that sense of anxiety or foreboding or whatever it is, again, just sort of mentally labeling it to yourself is one way to kind of recognize it and then stay with it a little bit. You can breathe with it, try to relax yourself. If it brings up, some unsettled thoughts or feelings or body sensations, just try to relax yourself with some of the techniques that we've used. All right, so enough talk, and let's do a meditation on emotions, okay? So just take a moment and find a position that's good to be in. Should be relatively familiar with that by now, but you can still be trying different things out too. So, but find a position right now that's comfortable and balanced and kind of easy to be with. And just as an intro, just remember that our strongest and most habitual emotions are sometimes completely unconscious. And without mindfulness, these patterns can run our lives. But research shows that mindfulness training increases our access to balance, resilience, and accurate perceptions, even in the midst of strong emotions. They call this expanding our window of tolerance. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We have an increased tolerance to stress rather than reacting to it. That's kind of what we talked about last week. So sit comfortably. Let's begin. You can close your eyes, or if you like, rather have them slightly open. But just finding a position that's balanced between being relaxed but also alert. And just establishing a simple sense of presence, noticing the state of your body. Let your body settle and bring a kind attention to whatever is present. Maybe feel a half smile of kindness. Feel a half smile on your lips. Let it fill your body so that you have kind of a receptive presence. Let the mind calm and the body relax. Calm and ease. You could even say those words to yourself if it's helpful. Calm and ease. Notice your breathing, just the natural rhythm of your breath. Feel the breath as it moves in and out of your body, just being aware of the gentle flow of your breathing. Notice if the mind wanders, and if it does, just gently and in a friendly way, bring it back to your breath. And now bring your attention to deliberately focus on a strong or a difficult emotion. Maybe take a moment to remember a situation of difficulty in your life. As you remember and picture this difficulty, let yourself remember how it feels. And maybe just choose one of the difficult emotions that arise at this time. Might be fear or hurt or anger, anxiety, worry, or dread. Just pick one. Don't focus on the story behind it. Drop down and sense the feeling in your body. See if you can notice where it is and let it be here for a time. Breathing to make space for it. Lengthening the inhale and the exhale if that helps. And you can name the emotion softly to yourself, allowing it space to expand in this field of mindfulness. Now, add compassion. Don't judge the feeling, try to make it go away. Hold it with compassion for all the suffering that's connected with it. And see how it responds to compassion. Maybe send yourself a soothing message, like you might to a loved one or a friend. And as you feel this strong emotion, imagine how many others are experiencing this same feeling across the world, and let your compassion grow to include them as well. And now notice if there are other strong feelings around and under this initial emotion, and hold these two with the same spacious awareness, and gently allow the whole experience, and let compassion and mindfulness work their magic. Now bring your attention back to your breath. And just really feel the breath, each one, as it flows in and out of your body. And just let yourself be present and balanced with this breath, or with these feelings just as they are. And I'll just finish with a loving kindness message. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be safe and protected. May we be well in body and mind, strong and healed. And may you be happy. And feel this care and loving kindness grow naturally by planting seeds, kind of accepting yourself as you are. Feel the joy of being alive. May you live with peace and ease. And so that ends the meditation. Just slowly transition. Just bring your awareness back into your body. You can open your eyes and move a bit when you're ready as we finish that meditation. Okay, so what was that like? Any thoughts or reactions to the meditation?
Relaxing.
Okay, good.
It was calming.
That was wonderful. Somebody says in the chat, calming, good. So you see how we're introducing the idea of being in touch with emotions and thoughts, difficult ones, and sending ourselves that level of compassion, trying to be with it. So it really did rain there. If you think about it, we recognized we allowed it to be. We investigated it a little bit where it showed up in our body. In the end, that brings us back to the nurturing part of it. Okay. So try that one. That's one that we'll be doing during the week. Here's another comment. I felt my body get tense with the emotion of sadness and anger. Yeah, that is bound to happen. So that's the idea that when we feel the tension, when we bring up those emotions, and sorry I asked you to do that, but it was part of the exercise. But then we try to breathe into it. We try to relax ourselves, soothe ourselves, do what is helpful. There are other ways to do that too. You can bring up a peaceful scene in your mind's eye. You can bring up a person who reminds you of somebody, that loves you and cares for you. And that's another way to kind of introduce that into it to help. So try some of those. Try the meditation on emotions. Will be one of our practices this week. What this all really does is it brings up what's called equanimity. Equanimity is a term that is used in mindfulness practice. And as you can see by the definition, it's this mental calmness or evenness of tempers, even in difficult situations or when there's, the VUCA present or lots of difficult emotions. And you can see some of the synonyms for that. So the idea, of course, is being able to call upon that when needed, or being able to have your body respond in such a way that it brings up a calmness, an even-mindedness, a cool-headedness, but also noticing it in the body, unexcitability, poise, self-assurance, self-control. Okay, that's equanimity, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. So what I'd like to do is kind of give you a second practice today. And there's a couple that are out there. You'll see there's a link to one that's on equanimity, but I'm actually going to do one for you that's called the Eye of the Hurricane. And I like this one because, it brings up the image of a hurricane where there's lots of, winds and rain and storminess around us. But we can be in this quiet place, the eye of the hurricane. So you'll see how that is during the meditation. All right, so again, just find a comfortable position. Sit tall with your back straight, but your shoulders relaxed. Let your hands rest comfortably. Gently close your eyes. Now let's take 3 nice, deep, slow breaths. Especially on the exhale, allow your body to relax, sink in. On a deep inhale, feel the breath come in and refresh the body. And just become aware of your body sitting here and notice the contact between your body and the chair beneath you. Notice your feet on the floor. Now let's consider a metaphor. Within the strong, turbulent winds of a hurricane, the eye, the center of the hurricane, is quiet, right? There's no wind or no movement there. For a moment, picture this idea in your mind. Can you visualize the strong, turbulent winds of a hurricane and the inner core that is peaceful and quiet? Let's see if you can become like the center of the hurricane. Your current circumstances, your thoughts, your feelings, sensations in your body can all be compared to the winds of a hurricane. So is it possible for you to let go of these things for a moment so that you're no longer taking part in them? Like the center of the hurricane is not taking part in the turbulent surrounding winds. To do this, start by focusing on your breath. Simply breathe in and out and focus inward. Just like the eye is deep within the hurricane, your eye is deep within you. Use your breath to connect to this part of you. Simply breathe in and breathe out. And stay connected to your breath. If anything stressful happens in this moment, such as a negative thought or an unpleasant feeling or annoying sound, a difficult memory, just try to look at them as if they're the turbulent winds of the hurricane, whirling around, constantly changing, unpredictable in nature. And notice that you are not them. You are the silent center of the hurricane, the part that is peaceful despite what's happening around you. You're the silent center of the hurricane, peaceful and at ease. You are not reacting, you are simply observing. And like the wind of the hurricane, these experiences are constantly moving and changing. And you, on the other hand, are stable. You're not moving or being carried away from them, by them. And as you're breathing, just notice how you move more and more towards the center of the hurricane, towards the eye. You're not part of the winds or the hurricane itself. You're in a safe and peaceful place. Breathing in and breathing out. As you sit here connected to your eye, notice whatever arises. Notice the wind, the rain, turbulence, the storminess. But with the breath, just notice you're also in the center, in the eye, not affected by it. And just get a sense of that calm and ease. Calm and ease. And if at any time you get swept up in some of the winds of the hurricane, in your own thoughts or emotions or stressful life circumstances, just reconnect through the breath. Come back to the eye of the hurricane and be calm and at ease. And before we close, just kind of notice what that's like in your mind, in your body, in your heart. And when you're ready, we'll finish the meditation. We'll rise from the meditation. gradually opening the eyes and reconnecting with the world around us. And remembering we can bring that eye of the hurricane with us wherever we go. Okay, so again, thank you for your practice with me and your attention, which we're strengthening all the time. And tell me, what was that like? Any feedback about that one?
Hi,
On
this
that
is Lynette.
one-
Oh, sorry, go
Lynette.
ahead.
Go.
Go ahead.
I have been in an eye of a hurricane, and it is quite eerie, and it's very still. And for me, the emotions going back, pulling it to try to be quiet, then in my mind was running, but those winds are going to come back and the roof's going to blow away. You know, I mean, because
Uh-huh.
it was an interesting, for me anyway, interesting concept because it's very quiet. And if you could get yourself to that stillness, I think that would be great.
Yeah, well, again, it takes practice, and it's this idea that we can find that place. Now, there are other images. If the hurricane thing is not to your liking, there's a couple of other ones that you'll see on the meditation page. One is the mountain meditation, and the other one is the lake meditation. And they both kind of have the same element of being able to find a peaceful, quiet place. With the mountain, it's you're connecting to the stillness, and the thing that with the mountain is always the same, even though there's lots of changes and there's the seasons change and there's lots of different weather patterns and so forth. But you still have the stability and the that immovable presence. And with the lake, it's the same kind of thing where there can be weather patterns and things that occur to the surface of the lake. And the surface of the lake is so different than when it's calm versus when it's cloudy or when it's rainy or windy. Yet you can always drop down to a quiet, peaceful place below the surface. So, yeah, so nice message from Sylvia. Thank you all. Good. I'm glad it's helpful. And yes, we do need the practice. Any other reactions or comments or questions about that kind of as you can see, these are different than the sort of the basic breath or body.
This is Sarah. I found myself a lot more fidgety during this one than during the previous meditation we did. Any
Okay.
suggestions?
Well, whenever you notice yourself being fidgety, I think it's just the question of first noticing that, begin realizing that we're not always going to be calm, and maybe that image brought up something for you that create a little bit of that fidgetiness. So noticing that, and then notice, what are you saying to yourself about that? Were you able to kind of notice, were you also then saying, I shouldn't be fidgety, or I should try to settle down, or this is not working? Like, what were your reactions to the fidgetiness?
I tried the calm and ease and saying that over and again, how you were saying that earlier. I did at one point say this doesn't seem to be working as well as the previous methods.
Yeah.
But I did try to focus on the calm and ease, just repeating that over and like the breathing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would say some of it worked for me, but I could definitely, then I see myself getting fidgety again too.
Okay. Well, see, what I'm saying too is that it's not that we're trying to be not fidgety. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when you're fidgety, and this is going to happen sometimes in our meditations, our minds are going to be active, or there's going to be things going on, and we're not always going to be able to be settled and relaxed. So if that's the case, just go with it and just sort of realize, okay, right now I'm fidgety. Be curious about that. What does it feel like to be fidgety in the mind, in the body? Explore that a little bit. See what I'm saying? It's not that you have to I mean, I know we were doing this thing on the eye of the hurricane, so I was kind of encouraging to be in the eye and to be calm and ease. So, but just notice when there is that feeling and we're not able to settle, maybe try some deep breathing. Maybe try to let our body just really sink in. Maybe do a quick body scan and notice where you feel it. Okay? Try
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Try that a little bit. Sure. Okay, so Grace says this time felt good, definitely be helpful in life, and we'll need a lot of practice. Yeah, well, we all need a lot of practice, definitely. And that's kind of what a lot of you are saying, and you're realizing that it's not like we're trying to reach a perfect place of relaxation either, but we're practicing. We're practicing with the attention, we're practicing settling our minds and our bodies, we're practicing when we get upset by something, when the VUCA happens, or when an emotion comes up. So somebody says the fidget example was great and helpful. Good. Well, and that, remember, try to let go of that. Remember we talked about in the beginning of striving. We're not always striving to get somewhere peaceful, although that is one of the nice outcomes of it. But, it's not always going to happen. So, but also to pick and choose what works for you. Maybe that particular example did bring up some emotional reactivity. But again, just notice what that is. Be curious about it. And this is just an image, that we're trying to learn to surf with the waves. We can learn to catch them rather than be tossed about. We can learn, and if it seems like it's hard, well, just even a dog can do it. So here are your daily practices for your home practice. The formal is either doing the emotion meditation, or there's a link for equanimity, which is actually different than the one. But you will find the eye of the hurricane. If you like the eye of the hurricane, you want to try that more, you can also try the mountain one or the lake one. Remember the 3-minute breathing space, and then for the informal practice, try that 3 breaths for a pause or stop, and then continue just noticing how we process pleasant and unpleasant events. Okay, so those are the practices. You'll have here's the 3 breaths for a pause to remind you it's written out here, and then those are all the links. So they go right to that. Well, the Cultivate Equanimity goes to a YouTube, actually. I have a bunch of these classes and other things on YouTube, so that goes to there. The other 2 go to the meditation page on our EFR website. So before I let you go, any last questions or comments or anything at all about where we're at, what we're doing? Okay, well, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate you being here and your mindful attention. We're going into, I was going to send an email about this, and I should have said this right up front. Next week, I'm going to have to skip the class. I'm on PTO. This came up unexpectedly, and so we will not have class next week. I'll send out that reminder. So we'll just extend it an extra week. And so instead of finishing on April 6th, we'll finish on April 13th. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty.
thanks.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks a
Be
Thank you
lot.
safe.
so much. Thank
All right,
Thank
you.
you're
you.
welcome.
Great.
Have a great
Thank you.
week.